We are back live with another recap of Week 5 college football, another weekend in the books. Ton of great games on Saturday. I was out in Penn State for that game. That was a very, very frustrating whole entire game for me. So spirits are a little low, Mr. Paisley, but how was your Saturday?
Yeah, it was a interesting Saturday. Like we said, had a big slate of games. Definitely got some great results. Maybe not great for our wallets per se, but a lot of great, data points that we could use. Really found out a lot about these teams. We'll definitely get into all of them, but yeah, definitely frustrating if you're a Penn State fan. I think we'll get to that one right off the rip here, just because of the magnitude of it. But yeah, really great. Started off with some great games Friday. Got into Saturday a little bit with some other great games throughout the day. So lot to unpack here, ready to get into it. But yeah, a very frustrating, crazy, a lot of emotions this Saturday.
And the one positive is I woke up this morning and I saw I hit like a 7-leg parlay, which was great. That
It was
was
a
like
nice day.
$10 and plus 3,000 odds or something. So some positive there. But yeah, we'll get into the betting recap quickly. Paisley ended up 10 wins, 13 losses, and a push with TCU. I did a little bit better above 500, at least at 8, 6, and 1. Also, the push was TCU +3, which that game was just ridiculous. Up 17 on Friday night. They looked like they were really rolling. And then Arizona State came storming back and ended up winning by a field goal. And of course, couldn't get it. I couldn't get the, with the points at 3.5 or anything. Unfortunately, it was 3, ended up being a push and kind of started out sluggish there on Friday. And then I also had Florida State -6.5, which that game was just a roller coaster. Also, UVA, right at the beginning, was playing great, up 14-0. Florida State came all the way back and forth game, went to overtime. And then, of course, we all saw what happened there with UVA and the field rushing and everything. So huge win for them. So long story short, FSU doesn't cover. Couple things right on my end. I got the Alabama +3, the Oregon with 3.5. I think we both liked Ohio State, but I took them minus the 8.5. Notre Dame first half hit. So up and down. And then I also got the over 52.5 in the Hawaii Air Force game, which I saw none of, but I saw it went way over. So that was a
cruise. I went in the first half too. I was watching that game.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, you had a nice little solid day there, Case. Definitely should have got home with the TCU +3, so you should have been 2-0 on the locks there. Got just screwed there with a little push. But again, that's why we say you got to get the best numbers. If you had 2.5, it's a loser. 3, at least you get the push, but they were looking really good. I started off Friday nights with the over in the Florida State UVA game, which went way over as well. Went into overtime, got a little bonus points there. Then we started off hot with another over with Notre Dame, Arkansas. Team total went over in the first half. Illinois first half +3.5. Thought that was a good play. Illinois showed up in that game. That was a wild game until the end when they kicked the last-minute field goal. Tough one for USC there. And then just kind of went, very sideways in the middle of the day. Was okay. The nightcap. My nightcaps have been terrible. I don't know what's going on at the end of the nights here, but I really liked App State, Air Force, and FAU. I was watching those games while the Penn State and Georgia games were going on. FAU was so frustrating. They were covering the whole game, and then they gave up like 3 touchdowns late off of fumbled kickoff returns, a pick 6. Like, it was just very terrible way to end it there. And then Penn State obviously was a big killer. The under in the Penn State game, just got to shout that one out. Fucking 3-3 at halftime. It's looking great at 53.5. And guess what, Case? It ends at 54 total points. So, sometimes that just happens in our betting world here. It's looking great, and you lose it by a half a point off of a going for 2. They got it, 3 touchdowns in overtime. Like, right when it's overtime, I just knew. I was like, it never really stays under if it goes to overtime. And then, Georgia, we'll get to that. Georgia and LSU are on my hit list. I am very, very upset with them. So we'll get to all of them. But yeah, started off really good Friday, Saturday morning, and then just really went sideways throughout the rest of the day. So just a frustrating week overall.
And it pushes our overall for the season to, which is crazy, 90, 90, and 6 overall, and the locks at 9, 9, and 1 through 5 weeks. So that's just crazy to me. It feels like every year, this is maybe, I don't know, our 3rd or 4th year tracking it. I know it's only our 2nd year with the podcast if you're listening, but yeah, crazy. We're always seem to be around that 50-50. We never seem to both have a great week. Sometimes one of us does, the other one a little below. But nonetheless, it's still it could be a lot worse. We're about even, but we hit a couple of those underdog parlays throughout the first few weeks. So the units should still be positive. But it is funny how that always seems to just come back to 50%.
Yeah, it's insane. Like you said, the last 3 years we've just been right around 500. Which you're right, we're not at least getting smoked by our picks, but we're not doing great either. So, we're gonna keep churning out, keep trying every week, and that's all it is. Just very thin margins here in the betting world. But the underdog parlay I think still up 9 or 10 units overall in the year because of our two big hits early in the year. UCF just let us both down. We were both on them. They looked great the week before. Terrible this week against Kansas State. Apparently Kansas State turned back to being okay. And then I had Cal there, which actually did hit. That was a crazy game. I don't even know if that should have hit. That was a back and forth game. A lot of crazy, just pure college football plays there. And they got the outright win, which was a very close one. So, just trying to look to hit those for the big unit plays. But yeah, overall, just 500. We're going to keep grinding though every week to get it over that.
Yeah. Big shout out to Cal too, because I had them in my parlay. So that was a part of that. Part of the great underdog pick, because I'm not sure I would have had that one in there if you didn't mention it last week. So that was nice. And then, if you're new to listening, we come out 2 podcasts every week, one on this Sunday or Monday recapping the college football week, and then one again will be released on Wednesday for the week 6 preview. We'll keep it going all season long. Feel free to give us comment, retweet our stuff. Let us know you're listening. Always helps us out to track the views on these. So with that being said, Paisley, might as well get right into it. I'm just going to kick it off with the Oregon-Penn State game. It's fresh on my mind. I was there. I don't know what direction I want to take this in. I mean, there's so many disappointments. I mean, I could, say the "I told you so" thing to, all the fans that didn't think that the offense was going to be an issue in this game. The first 3 weeks was very, very obvious. There was some major problems going on. I know there was a lot of excuses, certain guys maybe not playing or rotations, but no, the long story short is, though they are the team that they were the month of September, there was no doubt about it against Oregon on Saturday night. I mean, Aller played terrible. I mean, there's some of those things that, how it's hard to say, like we were just talking about it before we started the podcast, but how some of these quarterbacks around the country it seemed that they have regressed this year. And my last note is as much as I want to blame this on James Franklin, it's like, I don't know what else, like the receivers, I guess, aren't getting open, and then Aller misses the easy throws. Like there's not even a lot of coaching that, as far as the decision making and the time and clock management, all that stuff. I really wasn't that appalled, kind of like the Penn State Notre Dame game in the Orange Bowl. But no, Penn State has some serious problems. I mean, Oregon is a great team. I think they're going to, they're a lock at this point, I think, for the playoff. I think they're probably a top 5 team, no doubt. I think they're now number 2 in the AP poll. They're really good. So I don't want to take anything from Oregon, but Penn State is very lucky that they could have won this game somehow. If that fumble in overtime bounced their way, they could have won this game. They had really no business winning this game. Because it felt double overtime. It's a lot closer than it really felt on the field. I mean, Oregon was just getting ahead of the sticks. The Penn State defense kind of collapsed at the end, but they're lucky, I think, to still be ranked 7th and have this game in double overtime, because looking at their schedule, I could see 3, possibly a 4th loss for them this year, just based off of how good Indiana looks. Iowa, got to go there, got to Ohio State. So not going to be an easy path if you ask me, for Penn State moving forward.
Yeah, no, I think we found out a lot of answers on a lot of these games. We'll get into a lot of them, but like you said, with Penn State and Oregon, you got to give props to Oregon, coming out really buttoned up, not a lot of false starts, didn't really let the crowd get into them a little bit. They were sharp. They did, like you said, they were moving the sticks, keeping ahead of the chains, had a lot of 3rd and shorts, which is what you want to see if you're backing a team. And yeah, I was wrong. I really thought Penn State would just look a little better here. I was just very shocked to see the offense look like that. And that's a great point. They kind of were the offense they looked the first 3 weeks. So it's hard to just like completely mask that and turn it all around. I'm not sure what the exact issue is. It could be a lot of factors. It could be maybe one thing. I don't know. But like you said, I don't think Franklin coached this game away like he's done in the past for the in-game stuff, like you said. But I do want to touch on Franklin and the coaching staff as a whole. What are they doing with these players in practice in the offseason? In the first 3 games, how do you have this returning production and just look this flat, this like inept? Their offense looked better last year, which is hard to think. Aller looked like he's regressing. I feel like that's got to be on the coaching staff, a little bit on Alar too. Like it's not all one on the other, but you should be, if you have good coaching, you should be getting better each year. So I kind of, everybody likes to crown Kolnicki this great offensive coordinator, and he was the big hire when he came in 2 years ago. But I'm just not seeing it. They kind of popped when he first got there the first couple games last year, but since like the midway point, maybe case of last year now into this year, just been very stagnant, very just not explosive. They just really couldn't, can't run the ball for more than 2-3 yards, can't throw the ball for more than 7-8 yards. So you're kind of just stuck in the mud. You're kind of just trying to grind out drives and, just really chopping it up. Just don't really have that downfield explosive playmaker. But yeah, I think you could point the finger to a lot of things going on. I thought they fixed the receivers in the transfer portal, but it seems like that wasn't really the case. They have those really two good running backs. They can't really seem to get lanes, or they're not really finding the holes. So I wouldn't just blame this on one thing with Penn State on the offense. I think it's a lot of people have to take blame for it. But like you said, I don't think Franklin's really at fault for all this, but I do question his overall, coaching adamant and really making these guys better every day. He could recruit them. You get the right guys in there, and you can get the right coaches in there, obviously, with their offensive defensive coordinators. But what are they doing to progress these guys to get better every year? And that's just what I'm kind of questioning, seeing that this was supposed to be a different team, more talented. This should have been the team that could make a run. It was different than years past. And then they have the same result. And, like you said, double overtime. If you just look at the score, I think that was very misleading, very false. If you watch the game, if you were at the game like you were, Oregon really controlled this game. They could have been up 3-4 scores, I feel like, at some points, but the Penn State defense played well enough. But I was just really shocked that a young Oregon team came into Penn State, really moved them around, was more physical, kind of had the in-game adjustments that you were looking for. So it's just tough. It's just, someone said it's like Groundhog's Day with Penn State again. Like, it's this different team, different year, but it's the same result. And I just really thought this year was going to be different for Penn State. And I'm not even a Penn State fan, but I really thought that this was going to be different for them. So it's just very, very alarming, very telling that you're going to have the same results with a different team and different coaching staff. They have the two best coordinators, quote unquote, in the sport. And it was just, they got really pushed around and really moved around all game. So yeah, very, very upsetting if you're a Penn State fan, and just something you don't want to see. But on the Oregon side too, it's not like they got lucky. They played really well, and this is a really good team that I was wrong on. I did not think very highly of Oregon going into the season, but Dan Lanning's doing a good job. They were ultra aggressive on fourth down. This game really came down to some fourth downs. Like, I think there was 8 or 9 of them in the game total, so really high variance there. But, they looked really buttoned up. They ran the ball well. Dante Moore was hitting his passes. He looked calm. The defense was flying around. They really had a good game plan against the Penn State offense. So just really got to question a lot of things with Penn State. This one was definitely very disappointing for everybody involved there.
Yep. And no, it's all pretty accurate points there. The biggest problem for Penn State is not being able to get the running game going. They needed that running game. We mentioned it last week. If they couldn't get the running game, it was going to be a problem. Somehow they were able to actually took them to be down 17-3 to wake up the offense in the passing game a little bit. But that just wasn't sustainable. Clearly, it wasn't sustainable. And clearly, once we got to overtime, we saw what happened in the second overtime with the pick. I just had no confidence that Aller would have been able to keep playing at that level. I give him a little credit for the comeback, but yeah, like you said, Groundhog's Day. My expectations was low coming into this game. Like I fully thought this could happen. So I guess I could be grateful that they didn't get blown out of their own stadium, and it was a competitive, fun game. But yeah, disheartening for sure. They definitely have some serious problems to address and that's with Franklin too, long term. I will say, for the first time in probably 9 years, the Fire Franklin chants were very loud going on in the student section there, which is I haven't seen since I think the pre-Barkley 2016 game. It was starting to chirp a little bit in year 3 when things were moving, and then they got the win over Ohio State, and it cemented him for these last 9 years. But clearly there's anger and frustration louder than I could remember in recent history. So I'll take that as a positive to put some pressure on them a little bit, but I don't know what it's really going to do. If you keep going 10-2, it's hard for me to imagine you'll ever get rid of somebody, but I don't know. We'll see. I'm not sure where they go from here. They just got to, do what they could. They got to go to Iowa. They got to try to win that game, grind out a couple wins. They go to UCLA next week, and we'll get into this probably later in the week. But yeah, it's going to be a tough road ahead. And The other note, Oregon, yeah, I think, yeah, they're for real. Dante Moore played fantastic. Like you said, the crowd was extremely loud, but it did not seem to really cause any problems with the Oregon snap count or anything. I saw they were doing that silent snap count, so credit to Dan Lanning and all them for preparing for that. But the show will go on for them, but not a great game for Penn State for sure.
Yeah, like we said before the game, like a lot of pressure was on Penn State. Oregon was kind of playing free. They were going for on fourth downs, kind of using a little more plays. So definitely the pressure was on it. Now you see, why it mounted. But it's just frustrating. If you want to be a top tier team, if you want to be a top five, championship contender, you got to start winning some of these big games. And that's why the frustration is boiling over for Penn State these last couple of years. And you mentioned that 2016, 2017 game against Ohio State where they blocked the field goal. What if that field goal goes in? That's really the only win they're kind of hanging on for Franklin's tenure here at Penn State. So a lot of things could change here. I don't know if they ever will fire him because, like you said, he just does so well in the other games and he goes 10-2. But in college football, like you want to win those top tier games, you have to win in the playoff and have to win the championship game. So if you're not going to reach that level, it does raise a lot of questions. So I think his seat does get a little warmer. Like you said, they do have some tricky games. Like you said, Iowa on the road, Indiana's coming too. Penn State, they also have the Ohio State game. So not going to be a cakewalk the rest of the year with how shaky they looked. We thought they were going to be a top tier team. So definitely going to be a very interesting team with a lot of these teams that we're going to talk about here. It's not going to be very easy sledding for a lot of teams.
All right, enough with Penn State. We could probably go on all day about how disappointing it was for me, but we'll move on to some positive, Paisley, for you. Fighting Irish going on the road in Arkansas with a blowout win. Arkansas finally fired their coach, I believe, this morning. Breaking news, so he's no longer there. Big win for Notre Dame, no problems. Defense finally played well, and the offense really just picked up where they left off last week or the week before and continues to play at a high level. So big win for Notre Dame over Arkansas, 56-13 on the road.
Yeah, this one was impressive. This kind of got, overshadowed by all the big games going on. This wasn't really a marquee matchup, but, really impressive for a Notre Dame team who was kind of on the ropes. Every game is a playoff game going forward to go down to SEC territory. Wasn't a great SEC team, as we know. They're definitely bottom of the barrel Arkansas, but they do have a good offense. And that's a good point. Notre Dame's defense did play a lot better. I thought this was the best game they played overall, which for a Notre Dame fan definitely shows us some promise and some sign that maybe the defense could just get a little bit better. I think I mentioned this in the preview. Like, we don't need the defense to be top 10 like it was last year. We need them to be 70th or 80th, just be middle of the pack, hold teams to around 20, 28 points, and we'll be okay because the offense is so dynamic. So felt really nice to hit this one, hit it right on the nail on the head again with the Notre Dame team total, Notre Dame and the total overall in the game. Just really confident in this offense, and they just keep getting better, which is scary because they had some, 40-plus point performances the last three games here. So I really think this offense is maybe top 5 in the country, maybe top 3 with the way CJ Carr is playing. He's just such a great quarterback this young in his career. So really different team, like we talked about with Notre Dame, than what they were last year. Completely did a 180. They're going to be more offensive driven with their defense just being okay. But I think if they could get this defense along a little bit, like we said, the schedule opens up. This was a big win. This was one of their tougher ones remaining on the schedule, even though the final score didn't indicate that. But Jeremiah Love had a big game, got back to where he was. So, everything's kind of still in front of them. If they could still run the table, it's still a very hard task. But it was definitely a very, very promising sign if you're a Notre Dame fan. And on the Arkansas side, this was very disappointing. Like you said, coach got fired. Looked like they were kind of quitting at the end of the first half there, which is something you don't want to see from a, Division I top tier team in the country. Not top tier in ranking wise, but, it's a good program there in Arkansas in the SEC. So very alarming there. I think they have a lot of problems that they have to uncover there. But so, you balance both of it. It wasn't just, all Notre Dame. Arkansas definitely had a little bit to give away here, but definitely had to give a lot of credit to the Fighting Irish going on the road there. And hostile territory, someplace they've never really been to, and just really dominated from the start to finish. They had their first 5 drives, 70-plus yard drives, so it was nothing fluky about it. They're moving the ball down the field, really being really nice in the run and pass game. So really nice to see Notre Dame get back on track here. This stuff was a big win, and a lot of people were picking Arkansas. There was a lot of Arkansas love all week, so got to give Notre Dame a lot of credit there. I was really, really happy as a fan there to see that.
Yeah, spread only like 4.5. So a lot of people on Arkansas, and they definitely had Yeah, a lot of hype around this game at home. And if you're Arkansas, well, actually, I should say this: if you're Sam Pittman, you should actually be kind of grateful that they fired you, because I'm looking at Arkansas's schedule. I don't think they're going to win another game this year, and that would kill his college winning percentage if he was the coach for the remainder of the year. So Arkansas may have about 7 or 8 losses coming up. I mean, they could win. I mean, they do play Mississippi State, they do play Auburn, but I don't know. Auburn's playing pretty well. Mississippi State, we'll get into that. Or actually, we may not get into Mississippi State, but they almost pulled off a huge win against Tennessee. So Arkansas' schedule is pretty tough. Tennessee, A&M, Auburn, Mississippi State, LSU, Texas, Missouri. I mean, maybe they pull off an upset, but maybe I'll rephrase it as they probably won't be the favorite in any of the remaining games. So we'll see what happens to them. But yeah, I think this was more though about Notre Dame. They look pretty good. Obviously, we know what happened week 1 and week 2, but can only it's just a 1 week at a time, and they did it last year, so they just have to keep winning and really hope to win out if they want to have a shot at the playoff. I think the offense is definitely good enough. It's really just going to, like you said, it's going to come down to the way the defense plays.
Yeah, they got a little more pressure, which is something they really struggled with. They got a little more pressure with 4, sending 5 sometimes, and the secondaries, getting along there. So they just need more time to gel. So not a perfect structure and thing in place, but I think they could do enough, hopefully, to get wins here in the middle of the schedule. Definitely tightens up a little bit. Boise next week, USC the week after, and then they kind of have some easier ACC teams. So still have some nice tests on the road, so it's not done yet here.
Moving on to Southern Cal at Illinois. This was a one that you were on the money, Paisley. I was on USC. I thought I kind of just sold a lot of the stock in Illinois last week after their beatdown in Bloomington, but I got to give them credit. This was one, despite being at Penn State all day and missing a lot of action. This was one, though, I watched most of it here on my Starlink satellite, not a sponsorship, but big shout out to them on the high-speed internet, allowing me to watch games from the parking lot. Starlink. Illinois, though, they get the win at home. Really just kind of a sigh of relief if you're Luke Altmaier and Brett Bielema coming into the season, all these expectations, ranked top 10, you lose to Indiana and you're able to come back and beat an impressive USC team. I think maybe I got a little bit too high on USC the last week or so, but still a great team, high scoring game. Not used to seeing that with Illinois. So the offense played well. Back and forth game. This could have went either way, but they just did enough to get the win, and it's huge for Illinois. They're going to stay ranked, to keep some of the confidence throughout the season, and maybe things will pan out okay for them after that loss, horrible loss at Indiana. So Illinois, big win. Luke Altmaier over a ranked USC team, 34-32.
Yeah, this one was scary taking Illinois, as we talked about in the preview pod last week, but they really showed up. They came right out of the gate, started off hot, really had control of the game the whole game. This was kind of similar to some other games we saw on Saturday, where one team was controlling 3.5 quarters. USC had a really nice 2 touchdown drives at the end to take the lead by 1 point, and then Illinois answered. But this was the right result. I think Illinois did deserve to win the game. They played well for about 80-90% of the game, and like you said, the defense came out a lot better. They definitely were energized, ready to get back out there after that Indiana loss. So it does feel nice sometimes when you could kind of, not predict everything. We didn't get every pick right, but, I just kind of felt like Illinois was give a little more fight. It was quite an avalanche at Indiana. It was 63-10, but once it starts rolling like that, you kind of just get out of it. And Indiana really likes to take advantage of those teams. So, it wasn't really that much of a, disparity of score there at the end, but Illinois definitely did show up. That's why I really liked them in the first half, at least. But then USC did show some fight too. They have a really good offense. One receiver, Lemon, I think his last name is, had 2 nice touchdown grabs at the end there. And, but they really were sputtering early, and some that we, addressed as this USC defense. They just weren't as good as what maybe the national media. They were winning games and winning a lot and scoring high points, but they were giving up 20+ to Purdue, 20+ to Michigan State, and they don't have unbelievable offenses. So that was just something that I felt kind of bit them here a little bit here going on the road to Illinois. And we talked about the early start, this West Coast coming to the Midwest. USC, this is twice now they haven't fared well. Oregon kind of struggled going to Northwestern. So with the restructuring, we have these great games, which is awesome, but there is a lot of travel and a lot of Midwest teams going out to the West coming, to the Midwest, East Coast. And I think it's really starting to show on some of these college kids with just some of the results. It's just more times than not 100% of the time, but I think we're seeing a lot of slower starts, slower, because it does take a toll on these players. So it definitely was a little bit. They tried to get back into it. They took the lead with about a minute 30 left, but USC's defense just showed they're just not that championship caliber yet. They let Illinois go right down the field, set up for a nice field goal. So, really nice win for Illinois. Great bounce back. And USC still an electric offense, but if you want to be a complete team, if you want to be a championship, playoff team, you got to have both sides of the ball at least clicking a little bit. But USC's defense still seems to have a lot of struggles on that side of the ball.
Yeah, and good point on the time shift. It actually makes me wish that maybe the Oregon-Penn State game did get big nooned, because that would have been a 9 a.m. kickoff for Oregon if they showed up on Friday. So I'll keep that in mind next time I'm talking, trash on Fox's Big Noon. It's still terrible. No, that's good points. If you're Illinois, by the way, schedule's very favorable for them. And I know I sold all the stock, and now it might sound like I'm trying to buy back in. Maybe I will. But they play Ohio State in a couple of weeks. Outside of the Ohio State game, they're probably going to be the favorite in every game. Maybe not. They do go to Washington. They may not be the favorite there. But outside of that game, it's Purdue, it's Rutgers, Maryland, Wisconsin, Northwestern. And then, of course, Ohio State. That's very, very doable. So Illinois could get some momentum, and they really did what they needed to do. A huge win, and that win at Southern Cal maybe could keep them a little bit of a float in the rankings kind of later in the year if USC pans out to be as good as I think they could be in conference play. So keep that of note for Illinois to watch. Remainder of the season.
Yeah, and I think with a lot of teams, you kind of want these teams you beat or lose to just to look good. I think it's going to be really paramount this year for a lot of teams, because there's so many teams in the middle here. So like you said, they really want – it's a big win, but they kind of need USC to be good if they want to be in the playoff discussion later in the year.
That's why I just need Florida International to keep winning for Penn State stocks. All right, moving on. Number 1, Ohio State getting the win at Washington, 24-6. I got this cover. This was one of my positives. I should have even laid more points. I was doing some alternate spreads, but I got a little scared. But still, Ohio State 24, Washington 6. This was one of those spreads that there was a lot of Washington hype at the end of this leading up to kickoff here. There was a lot of fans. I saw this being predicted as a possible trap game upset, and I never fully grasped it. Maybe, first time quarterback going all the way out west. A lot of people were talking about how good Washington could be, that they're a top 25 team and this and that. But at the end of the day, none of that mattered. And Ohio State went in there. They handled business. They maybe didn't look, at Ohio State level we're used to seeing, but they dominated this game, controlled the whole thing. 24-6 was never really a game for Washington. At no point did they feel like I think they really had a shot to win this thing.
Yeah, I think what you said, handle business, is exactly how I describe it. Ohio State didn't do anything flashy, didn't do it, didn't crush them, didn't look ultraly impressive, but they did look very impressive on the defensive side, holding that Washington defense only 6 points. Washington tried that ridiculous fake field goal when it was 3-0. That was just atrocious. But got to give a lot of credit to Ohio State. Like you said, we were this is one I did not bet. I just couldn't get to Ohio State because of all the Washington love, and I really wish I would have went in on them, and I was kicking myself a little bit for that. But it was just one of those where we were kind of like, this doesn't seem right. But all the sharps, all the people that do this professionally were on Washington, drove this line all the way down, and it didn't cover any of the numbers, even if you had the 13.5 opening number. So got to give Ohio State a lot of credit here. Matt Patricia's doing a great job on that side of the ball. I really thought they would falter a little bit with how good Washington's offense has been this year. So I think if this defense could play like this all year round for Ohio State, it's going to be very scary for their opponents. And the offense is just doing enough. They're not as high powered as last year. They don't have the athletes, in the backfield, maybe on the outside like they did. And, Sand's a little more throw. He doesn't really run it as much as Will Howard. So, but this defense is just really impressing me in the Texas game, and now impressing me again going on the road here. And they really shut down Washington. They barely got past midfield all game. So, like you said, they handled business. Wasn't pretty, but they definitely looked the part of a top 3 team in the country. So, got to give them a lot of credit. And once this offense starts to get a little more camaraderie, a little bit more what they want to do, the running backs just hurt them a little bit. They're trying to really run the ball, but they just don't have that star back like they had. They had 2 last year that were really good. So if they could just maybe have somebody emerge out of the backfield there that really helped their offense. But the defense, man, that is very, very impressive to go into hostile territory and hold that team in single digits in that offense that's very high powered. So very, very impressed for Ohio State. Really disappointing for Washington. Really had a great chance here to make a stamp, but they're just not there yet, man. They were not as good as what people were thinking they were going to be.
And Ohio State hosts Minnesota next week, prime time. Watch that. And then Washington actually may have a trap game next week. I was just looking; they got to travel all the way to Maryland next week. So that's going to be an interesting one to watch. And I know we'll get ahead of that on cover that Wednesday, but something to look at going cross country after such a big game for them at home. All right, moving on. SEC country. Lane Kiffin, Paisley, your best buddy, Brian Kelly down there at LSU. Ole Miss gets the win. They get the win, 24-19. I know you were a little bit high on LSU, or just a little bit low, I should say, on Ole Miss more than anything. LSU did not live up to the standards here. Can't get the win. They lose outright. Ole Miss controls the game. They win it 24-19.
Yeah, this one was frustrating. We tweeted out about it while it was going on. It's just, we previewed it. I said it at the end of my breakdown. I'm like, it always happens where I back Brian Kelly. I think they're in the right spot. They let me down. And then every time I go against them, they look like the greatest show on turf. So can't get a real this team. So if I ever bet LSU going forward ever on this podcast, just bet the opposite of what I'm betting on LSU. Watch this whole game. And like you said, I was impressed with Ole Miss, but still wasn't like overly impressed. It was more on the LSU side. Like, oh my God, Case, this team stinks. They stink. And I think this just shows how bad Clemson was. LSU, they had these problems offensively the last couple of weeks. And this is what we talked about when Brian Kelly flipped down the reporters, asking about their offense and sputtering. They had 5 turnovers, gained against Florida, and they still only won by 10 points. Like, there was a lot of problems there, but they were getting the wins, and now the problems showed up in this game when they needed it most. I don't know what's going on with this offense. I mean, the offensive line's not as good as it was last year, but it's not terrible. The receivers are still good. Nussmeier just looks like he just doesn't know what he's doing. Like, I don't know what it is. It's like Cade Klubnik when I'm watching him at Clemson. It's like they were so on fire. They were getting more reps. They were looking so sharp last year. And this year they look like a freshman in headlights, but they're the seniors coming back for their 3rd, 4th year starting. And it just – they begged Nussmeier to come back, and it was just very disappointing, just missing throws high, missing throws low. Feet are all over the place. Like, I don't know if it is the offensive line being unsteady, but the run game wasn't really great, but we kind of knew that going into it. I really thought Ole Miss's defense was not good, but played a lot of – they rushed 3, dropped 8, which I think, got to give props to Ole Miss. That was a good game plan. They really might have saw something in the film or changed something up mid-game, because Nussmeier was really struggling with that. They could not block 3 of their guys. They had 5 offensive linemen. They could not block 3 rushers. It was just very embarrassing when you're trying to throw into 8-man, coverages. It is very tough. So, got to give Ole Miss credit there on the coaching staff. Their offense did enough. LSU's defense still played okay. They didn't play to their elite level. Ole Miss had a ton of yards on the ground and in the air. Their quarterback was a little shaky early, but then he did settle in the second half. So just really, really, really putting this blame on the LSU offense. I really thought they would show out here. But again, I can't bang LSU too much because Ole Miss did prove that they are – a very solid team. I still maybe don't trust them in the playoffs, or as maybe win a game or 2 in the playoffs. But for this spot and against LSU at home, it was a big win. And they really outcoached and outsmarted LSU. So every time I try and trust Brian Kelly Case, this is what happens. So I should have learned my lesson. I just got to stay away from these games, because every time I bet it with him or against him, it never goes my way. So I'm just This one hurt at 3:30. This was a very, very frustrating game, but they did not deserve to win this at all. And honestly, should have been a lot worse. They should have lost by 14-21. Honestly, it was not as close as the final score indicated.
Yeah, no, I missed a lot of the play-by-play action too. As I said, I was at Penn State, but just looking at the box score in this one, and this was caught my eye. Ole Miss 484 yards compared to 256, so just completely dominated in that category. But what's crazier is they had double the penalties as LSU. They had 14 penalties in the game for 109 yards and still controlled that. I don't know if I've seen 14 penalties in a while. I mean, sure it happens, but that's nuts for 109 total yards and still to dominate like that, control most of this game. So that's insane to me. And yeah, huge win for Lane Kiffin too. Really, I think he was due for a big win. They needed this one, and they got it done. So I guess big props to Ole Miss.
Yeah, and that's where I hesitate. It's a good call on the penalties. I'm watching this game, and I'm like, what would you say is a bad penalty game? Like 7, 8, 9 penalties in a game? That's a lot. You're right, 14, 15, whatever they had. It was insane. They were so sloppy, but right. So I walked away from this game just kind of pissed off at both teams, and I'm like, they both suck, but one of them had to win. But so good for Ole Miss. But yeah, the penalties and they were all penalties. They were not getting hosed by the officials. It was a lot of holdings, a lot of unsportsmanlike, a lot of targeting. It was just a Lane Kiffin sloppy team. So honestly, selling both these teams, do not trust them going forward here in SEC play.
That's insane. 14 penalties, but crazy big win for Ole Miss. We'll see what happens. We'll see the rest of their year as we're getting into conference play. Moving now to Iowa, number 11 Indiana getting the win there, 20-15. This one was we were not impacted by the spread, but that safety at the end. I was on Iowa. If we were on Indiana, that was a crazy safety at the end. The Indiana guy, the quarterback, or was it the punter? I forget. Just kind of ran back in the end zone and to run out the clock and got the safety automatically. They get to win, so the score was a little, 20-15. Really was a little bit different, but still big win for Indiana. They do what they need to do, handle business there. They now get through Illinois. They get through Iowa, which could have been a trap. They remain unbeaten. Their schedule is definitely more difficult this season than it was last year. They have to play Ohio State. They play Oregon coming up, and then they have to, of course, go to Penn State. So going to be, tough schedule for Indiana, but these wins are very important. And this was a big one at Iowa, low scoring game, but Indiana just does enough, and they get the win, and they remain unbeaten.
Yeah, like you said, got to give Indiana props. This was a big win for them after that big Illinois game at home. They went on the road. It wasn't pretty, as always, at Iowa. It's never going to be an easy game. It's going to have to grind and grind it out. It was 13-13 very late in this game, and then Indiana broke off a little slant, missed tackle, ran it for 70 yards. So it was a very tightly contested game. I think Iowa was up 10-3 or 13-3. Like, they were up early on this game and really put the pressure on Indiana, but Indiana hung in there. They did not look nearly as good as they looked against Illinois, obviously, but kind of turned out how we did it, how we, projected the game. You had this as a lock, which was a great call. I also put it on my card. Just was too many points, and Iowa really did everything they did. They ran the ball, played their defense, really turned out the game we thought it would, and they really had a chance to win this. They actually had a field goal. I think it was like a 51-yarder deep field goal for a college kicker, and kind of just pushed it or missed it a little left. That would have put them up 3 with about 2 minutes left, and Indiana got the ball. A couple plays later, that's when they broke that slant off. So it was a very tight game, close one. I still do think Indiana is very good, but this definitely was a shaky, game, which we thought was going to be shaky going into it. So I was impressed with the Iowa side. Their quarterback also I don't know if he got injured or they just put the backup in because they were throwing a little more. I didn't have the sound on this one, so I couldn't listen to what was going on there. So just something to keep in mind with Iowa. But they did exactly what we thought. They ran the ball, played good defense, low scoring, grinded out game, and they were very, very, very close from getting an outright upset. It was very, very close. I just felt bad for the Iowa fans, and they really deserved to win this one. But got to give Indiana credit. They battled hard and got the short win here on the road. So big win for them as their college football playoff chances. They really could not slip up, and they really needed this one here.
Yeah, I liked Iowa just based off of the big win that Indiana had last week. I thought it'd be a little bit more sluggish, and it was definitely true, and on the road. So just kind of a scheduling thing, was why I liked Iowa so much. But yeah, they really did have a chance to win this game. It would have been a huge win for them too, just based off of, their early loss to Iowa State on the season, but disappointing for them. But if you're Signetti, it's a big sigh of relief for them, and Indiana be able to remain undefeated. All right, moving on to Texas A&M, number 9, Texas A&M 16, and Auburn 10. This thing probably should not have been a one-score final. Texas A&M really looks like they dominated totally, 414 yards to 177. Looks like Marcel Reed didn't have his greatest day, but nonetheless, A&M gets a huge win. Kind of similar to that Indiana-Iowa game, as A&M really needed this win to keep in contention for the SEC and keep their really hopes alive as they get into more difficult SEC play. So huge sigh of relief for Indiana, and now also for sure Texas A&M staying unbeaten as well.
Yeah, that's why it's very important to check the box scores after. You got to do your homework after these games just to look, because I was watching this game and I definitely thought, Texas A&M should have scored more, and I didn't even look at the box score. How you said the yards there, that's really telling. So, Texas A&M really kind of dominated this game. They had 2 or 3 missed field goals, but they were kind of deeper. They weren't like super short. Just really couldn't get a lot of touchdowns there. They were moving the ball and just took away a lot more. We knew it was a tough spot for Auburn. That was the only worry we previewed. Like, they're a good team. It was just a tough spot after that very physical and emotional Oklahoma game. Now going back on the road to a very, very tough environment. But Jackson Arnold just ain't it. It's not it. The offense is broken. I don't know if he's just not throwing the ball. He just keeps scrambling around and like running forward for 2 or 3 yards, like every play. Like he's just not letting it rip. I don't know if the receivers are not getting open. They can't run the ball. The offensive line let up a ton of sacks. Like if you take the sacks from Oklahoma's game and this game, it has to be in the double digits, which is too much for 2 games. So Auburn put in a lot of chips this year. They've spent a lot in the NIL. Their defense is really good, which is crazy because they really kept them in both these games to have a chance to win. And Auburn was actually driving late too. Like you said, for how bad they played, they actually still had a chance to win, which was crazy. So that defense was really doing all they can. Kind of reminds me of a Florida team where the defense is really doing all they can. They're keeping them in as best as they can. And the offense just needs to get into the 20s and they just can't do it. So just really frustrating that side of the ball. You have Hugh Freeze, who's an offensive guy, so his time might be running out there. But very interesting. Someone mentions about Auburn, like why they push all their chips in for this year with the schedule they had. I mean, it's starting off tough. They have a tough middle part, and they end tough. So it's just a very brutal schedule. So I just don't understand the logic there of not trying to go all in. Maybe last year or maybe next year. So just a very interesting program in Auburn. It's just a very interesting because they have the talent, they have the money, but it's just very tough, and they're just not putting it together. And Jackson Arnold had he was okay at Oklahoma last year, but he's not like that top-tier quarterback, so he's really not living up to it. So just big win at Baylor week 1, but since then it's just been very downhill for the Auburn Tigers.
Yeah, no, you couldn't have said it better. And yeah, tough for Auburn going now back-to-back really close losses at Oklahoma and now, of course, Texas A&M. So we'll see where they go. But as you said, the schedule does not get much easier at all for them. So may not be a good sign for them for the rest of the season. But yeah, we'll see. They unfortunately fall up short here, and A&M really in the driver's seat right now, or they got to be feeling really good. Getting a couple really huge wins here early in the season. So will be fun to watch. And Marcel Reed too, fun player to watch. You never know exactly what he's going to do. I thought he was terrible last year, and then he comes back, and now he was like in the Heisman odds, and he's making like electric plays. I think they have really good wide receivers. I'm not going to lie, I didn't catch a lot of this game, but I just remember from that Notre Dame game, the receivers are really good. So if you have a few playmakers and guys that can make big plays after the catch, like that's all you need. Like that could, change your entire season. So we'll see if this could finally be the year for A&M. They kind of remind me of kind of the Penn State of the SEC, where you're just a little bit short every year. Like you lose 1 or 2 more games than the elite programs, and always, end up second, third, or fourth or whatever in the conference. But nonetheless, they do what they need to do. They get the win, and like a few other teams, they remain unbeaten.
Yeah, I think no one's really talking about Texas A&M too. And like you said, Marcel Reed might be the most improved player. We talk a lot about these quarterbacks getting worse every year. He might be the most improved. You're right. He's just really passing it really confidently. Running back's really good. Like you said, a couple receivers. So if they could just get that defense to playing kind of like a Notre Dame, if they could just be middle of the road because the offense is that electric, they could do some things in the SEC. So I think people got to start putting them on notice at the top of the SEC.
All right, Paisley, final game. This was ABC Saturday night, rivaled with the Penn State game. So obviously I was only following it on my phone, was unable to watch this one live. But Alabama, they get the win. I was down on them after the Florida State game. I probably made some pretty crazy comments about Kalen DeBoer and how everything's falling and it's all over for them. They respond, they get a couple big wins. And I actually did like them here, so I'm not going to completely just shit on my opinion, but I did like them here. They win the game outright on the road. Huge win for Kalen DeBoer. Not good for Georgia at all if you're them coming off with home game, all the hype around this team, this game. But they go in the hostile territory and they're able to get the win, 24-21 over their rival in Georgia.
Yeah, Kirby Smart just can't beat Alabama no matter who's the head coach. I really thought it'd be different this time, but there's just some things you just can't get by, And I think talking about Oregon or Alabama, these were definitely 1 and 2 most impressive performances Saturday. Really stamped their approval as an elite team. I was high on Alabama before the year, and then I saw Florida State and got really worried. But this was a team I was expecting. Ty Simpson looked really good. Got to watch this game along with the Penn State game. Alabama really controlled this game. This was not a fluky game. They controlled it really good. Again, kind of similar. I felt like it could have been a lot worse than what it was, and Georgia really battled back. They had a one or two like 80-yard touchdowns where a guy broke a tackle and ran down the sideline. So got a little fortunate there. But Alabama was moving the ball all game. They had a lot of third and shorts, very similar to Oregon. They were moving the chains, controlling the clock. Their offense was doing a lot. Ty Simpson hit some nice third down passes. Ryan Williams really woke up on the outside as a receiver. He had a big game. So really troubling signs for Georgia. It's just not the Georgia team we thought. So I kind of like the over in the game because I knew their defense wasn't as good going off of that Tennessee loss, but their corners and their secondary is just not as sharp as they were. Really getting taken advantage of. And then they were hitting some run plays when they needed them. Wasn't running all over Georgia, but definitely a lot bigger holes. They had a bad unsportsmanlike conduct penalty at the end of the game where they kind of stopped them on second or third down. The guy jumped on a pile from like 10 yards away. Like it was just not buttoned up. Yeah, I think it's really fallen apart there for Georgia. Gunnar Stockton played good at moments, but definitely did not play as well as he did in that Tennessee game. Georgia had some chances though. They got a nice fourth down stop at the 50 when they were down 3 to maybe push it. They went 3 and out, punted. They had a nice interception, ran it back, and then kicked a field goal. So just a lot of like timely errors by Alabama, but they played really clean throughout the game, and Georgia just couldn't take advantage of it. And that's the thing you saw from Georgia in the past when they won national championships. Like if you made a mistake on them, they were converting that right away to a touchdown and making you hurt it. So it's just not the same Georgia team. They just don't have that explosiveness on defense, really, with those playmakers and the secondary shutting you down. You can't run the ball. They could be had on defense. And I think Alabama definitely could have scored even more points than just the 24. So a little misleading final, as I mentioned before. But Ty Simpson looked really sharp. If you're an Alabama fan, this was definitely an encouraging sign. Huge win for Kalen DeBoer. You could just tell after the game, he was just like so relieved. You could tell he really wanted this one and could definitely take a little pressure off their backs. So not saying Alabama's a, top 5, championship contender yet, but this was a big, big win to go into enemy territory and look really impressive. Not just win the game, but look really impressive while doing it. So I was definitely very impressed with Alabama, and I'm just very, very disappointed. This is my other lock of the day with LSU and Georgia. I just really thought they would come together here at home. Not the case. They have a lot of problems as well. So a lot of questions down there in Georgia. Now what you want to see, but Alabama, got to give them a lot of credit. That was a great, great performance from them.
Yeah, and good note too on the Georgia team. They're just not the same team as they were a few years ago. Even the last couple of seasons, we saw it last year. They were kind of a mess towards the end of the season. They remember they almost lost to that game at Georgia Tech. They barely get in the playoff. Then they get a few big wins, but and then we're kind of here back again a year later. Similar, they have just some problems. They're not just dominating teams. They're not capitalizing off turnovers, like you said. So we'll see where they go from here. And the one, I guess, positive if you're Georgia is at least you got that win in Knoxville. Like that's a huge win that maybe at the end of the year, if they are a fringe playoff team in the SEC or just in general, but towards the top of the SEC standings, that could be a deciding factor. So to anybody that says, these games don't matter now that there's an expanded playoff, they certainly will late in the season when we're looking back at just these 1 or 2 loss teams. And maybe, a 3-loss team will be in the conversation just for how top level the SEC is. But so that we'll watch that. And then, Alabama side, I know I just mentioned it, but just big win for them. And now they actually host Vanderbilt next week, which we'll get to also later in the week. That's going to be an awesome game. College Game Day is going to be there covering a Vandy game. I thought it would be the first time ever that Vandy is being featured, but actually in 2008, I just looked it up. I guess they were at a game with Auburn. I don't know. So I guess it won't be the first time, but pretty crazy. I know we didn't really talk about Vanderbilt at all yet on this pod. We'll get to it next in a few days in the preview podcast, but going to be fun to watch and huge win for Alabama here. And we'll see if they can keep the momentum, for the rest of the season after that disappointing loss at Florida State.
Yeah, going to be a big one for Vandy. Who would have thought? A lot of revenge, a lot of storylines going on. It's going to be fun. And then just one point on it, maybe an overarching theme on all the games we cover, all these top teams, the NIL and the portals really, I think, just spreading out the talent all across the college football landscape here. So I think Georgia in the past, used to just dominate these teams because they had 9 or 10, 11 NFL guys on one side of the ball. Now they might only have 3 or 4 because all these other NFL guys are going other places and really spreading out the talent. So you really just can't rely on a Clemson, Alabama, Georgia in the past where they had, so many top guys. Now you only have a couple, and all these other teams have a couple of top guys. You just look at the talent gap, with all the teams, with the Oregon, Penn State, the Alabama, Georgia game, it was pretty level all around. Like there was no, I watched one team was like, oh my God, they dominated in talent. They just looked so much better. all these teams are looking kind of even. So I think coaching, I think development, I think stuff like that is really going to take, a really big form here, because that's going to become really important, because a lot of talent now is spread out throughout. So now what are you going to do with those smaller talented players that you have now on your roster?
Yeah, no, that's a good point on the production and the evening out of kind of production, and you see that a lot in the transfer portal. Yeah, every year, a lot of these guys at high end programs that aren't getting as much time as they want now, all of a sudden are going to play at maybe a middle tier, Power Five or Power Four team, and spreading that talent around. So yeah, I think that's no doubt about it having an impact on the sport, and we're seeing it on these elite programs. Okay. First question, basically, did I miss any games? I know I missed the Notre Dame game the one time. I think I got all the big ones.
Yes, we did run through all of them. I think we got on them, and we'll touch on. I got a couple of them to shout out on the winners and losers here, but yeah, I think we covered all of them and got some great data points. Just overall, we learned a lot about a lot of teams, and it's really fun to see.
All right, with that, everyone's favorite segment, winner and loser of the week. I'll kick it off on the winner of the week. I'm gonna go UVA field rush for the winner of the week on Friday night over Florida State. Going all the way back to Friday. It feels like it was an eternity ago. But huge win. I'm sure everybody saw the video of that field rush. That was unbelievable. They trampled that Florida State receiver, I'm pretty sure. Hopefully he's all right. But got to give them a ton of credit. A lot of people, the spread was low. I was on Florida State. I put it on my card. I was wrong. A lot of people thought this was a trap game, and it definitely was. Virginia really just controlled this game. I mean, I can't say controlled the whole game. Florida State came back. But just that whole atmosphere was great for UVA, and that field storming was quite something in overtime. So big shout out to UVA and specifically the rushing field. Definitely worth. Oh, really quick, it was $50,000 fine. I think that's about $1 per person. So I think all of those people would have definitely contributed $1 for that moment. So
that's funny. And I'll keep it short and briefcase. I also had Virginia just as a whole. I love the field rush aspect because that was really neat to see. I was watching that live. That was the second it got intercepted, they just rushed it. That was they were just waiting on that. It was so cool to see. So as a viewer, that was really neat to see. You just don't see Virginia football, up there. And I think, looking at all these games this weekend, there was a lot of results that people just weren't expecting. I think it's going to be more to come. Like we talked about the talent gap getting spread out. Like we thought Florida State, people were like, oh my God, they might be a top 14, top 5 after they beat Alabama. Now they lose on the road to Virginia. The opinions and the shape of some of these teams are just so up and down. So that was really cool for Virginia. We knew they were going to score a lot of points, and they did just enough there in overtime. That was a great, great win for them. I think they took off classes on Friday or something I was seeing or reading. So they really put all their chips in this one. The administration really let them, put all their energy into this game. And it's fun when a school gets rewarded for that, when they put a lot of energy into something. So also we'll be shouting out the Virginia Cavaliers. So that was a great, great win for the program.
Yeah, I love it. And I do think there'll be a lot of 2-3 loss teams at the end of the season this year with the playoff from that 12 to 16 or even more, even 8 to 15. You're going to see, I think, a lot of 2 losses. So it's going to be a chaotic November. So your Florida State season's certainly not over. You got Miami. That's huge. I mean, you could completely change the narrative with Miami. So coming up. All right, loser of the week. This one's just easy for me. It has to be James Franklin, just because you have it right in front of you. I think every year he's my loser of the week, either when they lose to Ohio State or Michigan or I guess now Oregon. So has to be. This one even stings a little bit more, I think, just because you're at home. It's the whiteout. It's the biggest game. You've had a year to prepare. I don't need to repeat the talking points of the national media. Everybody knows it, but 3.5 point favorite or whatever it ended up being. Couldn't get it done. Didn't get the win. Simple as that. James Franklin, loser of the week.
Yeah, not a lot of factors going against them this game. They really had a lot going in their favor, like you said. And, waking up this morning, seeing all the James Franklin stats, I know you've probably seen them a ton of times. Doesn't help the stats there when you're seeing a lot of 20, 30%, 11% winning percentage with some of these top teams, Michigan, Ohio State. It just all comes out in full force. So, like you said, I mean, maybe will they change up their schedule, maybe play some decent teams before they play a top 5 team? That'll be needless to say. I don't think they're going to change it in the near future here in the first couple of years, but maybe have to change some things structurally there going on in Penn State. Definitely very disappointing. My loser of the week also touched on it. I'm just going to keep it simple too. I'm going Garrett Nussmeier. LSU quarterback, just really disappointed. I really liked him. Thought he could maybe be a Heisman Trophy winner. I thought he'd be the leader of that offense, and that was embarrassing. It was very, very embarrassing. I felt like I was watching Cade Klubnik week 1 at home. Like, just, I don't know what these quarterbacks are doing. It's very disappointing to see them in the system year after year, and they just look worse and worse. So I don't know what's going on. Got to point the blame at the coaching staff because I feel like that's the only person you could, and on the player too. He definitely takes some blame. But LSU, they had those problems a couple weeks leading up to it, and it definitely showed in this one. This was very disappointing. So from going to maybe the best team in the country after Clemson to now being an absolute joke and maybe falling off the map until I bet against them, and then they'll win and look amazing. So we'll keep an eye on them. But Garrett Nussmeier, very, very disappointing performance there at Ole Miss.
Yep. No, very, very true. And it's a good point too. During that LSU Clemson game, we said that maybe both teams aren't, all that. And it turns out that might definitely be true, especially after what we saw happen to Clemson this year. That's a good loser of the week. I will Instagram DM Mr. Nussmeier to let him know that he is our loser of the week.
That's
your loser of the week this week. So I'll let him know about the award. All right. Well, that is all we have for the recap of week 5 college football. As I said in the beginning, we'll be back on Wednesday night, released here on YouTube, Twitter, Spotify, however you may be listening. And great slate next week, and we'll see everybody then.